to the Geek, the History Geek. I'm Mr. Hodges. Did you know that we often take for granted the history of everyday things around us? For instance, how about something as simple as, the rights that we enjoy as, a citizen of the United States? Stay with me to find out how the troubles of a simple German immigrant to the British colonies helped to lead to some of our most cherished rights in our country. Our story today about John Peter Zenger starts in October 1697 in Rumbach in the German Palatinate, long before there was a German nation. His father, Nicholas Zenger, who was a schoolmaster, and his mother decided to have their family immigrate in late 1709 to the British colony of the province of New York. Unfortunately, Zinger's father died during the voyage across the Atlantic. Luckily, the royal governor, Robert Hunter, had guaranteed apprenticeships for the children of Palatinate immigrants. This would be a tremendous help for his widowed mother. John Peter Zenger, 13 years old, would be apprenticed to William Bradford to learn the trade of a printer. Johanna Zenger, his mother, would agree to the indenture in early 1710, and John Peter would begin his training. He would be required to work until his maturity, which was likely the age when he reached his majority, what we know as adulthood, which was 21. William Bradford was the first and only printer in New York. During this period, it was common for the colonial government to have an official printer for all governmental and colony business. He printed government documents, legal documents, pamphlets, books, and, even currency. Following his 8 years of apprenticeship, Zenger would leave Bradford's shop and continue to work in the printing field in the colony of Maryland. However, unable to secure a contract with the government of the Maryland colony, Zenger would eventually return to New York City, and he would partner with William Bradford in 1725 when Bradford founded the New York colony's first newspaper, the New York Gazette. Eventually, Zenger would leave Bradford's shop and set up a rival print shop. His print shop would struggle due to a lack of demand for print jobs, but would continue to succeed and do work. In the meantime, things had been happening in the province of New York that would, set up an interesting series of events. The king had appointed John Montgomery to be the royal governor in 1728, and John Montgomery unexpectedly died in 1731. Rip Van Dam would serve as the interim governor until the new governor arrived. The king would appoint former Brigadier General William Cosby. 13 months would pass before William Cosby would arrive in New York. Shortly after arriving, Cosby would start trouble. He demanded that the former interim governor turn over half of his salary that he received while in office. When Van Dam refused, this would lead to Governor Cosby taking Van Dam to court. His heavy-handedness did not end there. The governor also insisted that the court's legal proceedings be done through equity jurisdiction, which eliminated the need for a jury. Many colonists across the British colonies disliked equity courts, and they saw them as a form of tyranny by the government. It was clear Cosby made this move because a jury would have likely supported Van Dam. On April 9, 1733, when the colony's Chief Justice Morris dismissed the case on legal grounds, Governor Cosby had him removed from office. He also dismissed Van Dam from the New York Provincial Council and named James Delancey, a person who was loyal to the governor, as the new Chief Justice. The governor also demanded that the former Chief Justice Morris justify his decision in dismissing Cosby's case. This would be done by publishing a pamphlet explaining his decision. This pamphlet would be published by John Peter Zenger and sold to the public. This angered Governor Cosby due to the nature of the very public response. As this drama was unfolding, James Alexander, William Smith Sr., and several other opponents of the new governor formed a new political faction to support the former Chief Justice Morris and to fight against the governor's actions. When the group needed a printer to publish political tracts expressing their views, they turned to Zenger. It was clear that William Bradford would not support these actions and would clearly jeopardize his position as the official printer. Alexander would go on to found the second newspaper in the colony, the New York Weekly Journal, and this would be printed and edited by Zenger. And thanks to the controversy, the new business would gradually increase Zenger's business. While Alexander and others would do the actual writing and editing, the newspaper's owner, Zenger, would be listed on the masthead. Some articles would be signed by Zenger, but it is unclear if he actually wrote them or if he was covering for the real authors that wished to remain anonymous. Governor Cosby and his loyal supporters clearly saw the New York Weekly Journal as a serious problem since it was highlighting the inappropriate dealings of the governor and accused the governor of violating the liberties of the people. The governor tried legal means to shut the New York Weekly Journal down twice, and twice the citizens serving on the grand juries refused to indict Zenger on charges of seditious libel. Now, seditious libel was a very serious charge. It was considered a criminal offense under English common law to print any material with the purpose of provoking dissatisfaction with the government or undermining the respect for the government or its officials. Not to be deterred, Governor Cosby tried to use the power of government censorship to stop the publication of the New York Weekly Journal. He requested the public hangman to ceremonially burn issues of the newspaper, but the popularly elected assembly refused to issue the order to do so. When the governor ordered the sheriff to have the papers burned, the sheriff could not do so because the Court of Quarter Sessions adjourned without entering the order, and the public hangman could not proceed. The governor also offered a reward of £50 for the discovery of the true authors of the articles, and even this did not work. Again, the governor attempted to proceed against Zenger by using a highly unpopular legal procedure in the colonies known as an information. This allowed the prosecution to proceed without a grand jury indictment, and the New York Provincial Attorney General, Richard Bradley, acting on behalf of the governor and the crown, filed an information with the Supreme Court of Judicature. Based on the information, Governor Cosby's allies in the court, Chief Justice Delancey and Justice Phillips, issued a bench warrant for the arrest of John Peter Zenger. The sheriff would arrest Zenger on November 17, 1734. Zenger's attorneys, James Alexander and William Smith, sought a writ of habeas corpus. When this was brought before Chief Justice Delancey, he set the bail at an extraordinary sum of 600 New York pounds. Obviously unable to pay this amount, Zenger would end up spending 9 months in jail. In the pretrial hearing, a grand jury refused to indict Zenger, but despite this refusal, Cosby's loyal justices agreed to hear the case anyway. They based their decision on the personal testimony of another loyal supporter of Governor Cosby, that is, the Attorney General Bradley. When Zenger's attorneys challenged the validity of the judicial proceedings and the fact that the two-man court was specifically chosen by the governor himself, they would be disbarred, leaving Zenger without a lawyer. The court would appoint John Chambers, a young and inexperienced attorney, and also another loyalist of the governor, to represent Zenger. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking. This really does look bad for Zenger. To be fair, Chambers did work to serve Zenger very well. He challenged the list from the jury to be chosen, not once, but twice, and he helped to ensure that the jury would not be biased against Zenger. Zenger's allies worked behind the scenes to obtain the best-known lawyer in all of the British colonies, Andrew Hamilton of Philadelphia to defend Zenger. Now, when the trial started, September 1735, Attorney General Bradley read the charge of seditious libel against Zenger. Zinger's lawyer, John Chambers, entered a plea of not guilty. He went on to describe the nature of the allegations against his client and that the Attorney General had to prove who was responsible for the libel. When Chambers returned to his seat, Andrew Hamilton rose on behalf of Zenger and admitted that his client, John Peter Zenger, had printed and published the journals as alleged. Obviously overjoyed, the court looked at this as a victory, but Alexander Hamilton would argue that the words in the articles in the papers had to be false, that is, untrue, for them to be libelous. Justice Delancey would not allow Hamilton to prove the truth of the articles. Hamilton therefore then argued that the jury had a right to jury nullification, meaning that the jury could nullify a law that was considered either immoral or wrongly applied. He went on to state that, and I quote, "It is the right which all freemen claim, and are entitled to complain when they are hurt. They have the right publicly to remonstrate the abuses of power in the strongest terms, to put their neighbors upon their guard against the craft or open violence of men in authority, and to assert with courage the sense they have the blessings of liberty, the value they put upon it, and their resolution at all hazards to preserve it as one of the greatest blessings heaven can bestow." Later on, he would go on to say, and I quote, "But to conclude, the question before the court and you gentlemen of the jury is not of small nor private concern. It is not the cause of a poor printer, nor of New York alone, which you are now trying. No, it may, in its consequence, affect every freeman that lives under a British government on the main of America. It is the best cause. It is the cause of liberty, and I make no doubt but your upright conduct this day will not only entitle you to the love and esteem of your fellow citizens, but every man who prefers to a life of slavery freedom, and will bless and honor you as men who have baffled the attempt of tyranny, and by an impartial and uncorrupt verdict have laid a noble foundation for securing to ourselves, our posterity, and our neighbors that to which nature and the laws of our country have given us a right, the liberty both of exposing and opposing arbitrary power in these parts of the world, at least, by speaking and writing truth." The jury would proceed to acquit John Peter Zenger, and he would be released from prison. Now, it should be no surprise that a detailed account of the trial soon appeared in the New York Weekly Journal. The court proceedings were also published in a pamphlet titled "A Brief Narrative of the Case and Trial of John Peter Zenger." He would quickly be considered a local hero. About a year later, Governor Cosby died, and soon after, Zenger would be appointed the public printer for the province of New York. A year after that, he would be appointed to the provincial contract as the printer for New Jersey as well. So why is the John Peter Zenger case so important? Why should we care? This important court decision helped to influence the independence of attorneys and the power of juries to act as an important counterbalance against the excesses of executive powers. It also clearly pointed out the need for a free press. While it did not specifically establish the idea of freedom of press that we enjoy today, it did have an important influence on greater freedom for the press, and it had a major impact on how people thought about these ideas. Many years later, these ideas would lead to protections embodied in our First Amendment right to freedom of the press. One of our founding fathers, Gouverneur Morris, said that the John Peter Zenger case was, and I quote, "the germ of American freedom, the morning star of that liberty which subsequently revolutionized America." Now, since there's even more to learn about this court case, I urge you to do some additional research for yourself. The pamphlet that I mentioned about the trial of John Peter Zenger is still being published and sold today. And there are all sorts of different resources out on the internet as well. As always, if you've liked this video, I would like to encourage you to share it with others, and please vote for more history by giving it a like. This simple act can really help the channel out with the YouTube algorithm. I want to take a moment to thank all of the people that have supported the channel by subscribing. Thank you. I would also like to urge new viewers or those that have not yet subscribed to please do so. It is free and it is something that can be helpful in supporting this channel. Be sure to click on the bell to receive all notifications for future videos. Remember, there's a lot more fascinating history left to explore. Well, that's all for now. So until the next time when I ask the question, did you know? I am Mr. Hodges, and this is the History Geek.